Oh, goodness gracious. Again, the StreamYard screen is telling me that I'm live. Wow. Welcome to Riffing with Ryan. I am Ryan Erickson. And with me is a interesting person, a new friend who I have encountered a couple days ago and who I think we're just going to have a fantastic little riff here. And I'm going to enjoy it. I'm pretty sure he's going to enjoy it. If you enjoy it, well, that's your choice. So I'm going to bring Benjamin Igna to the screen. Hello, Benjamin.
Hey Ryan, hey.
Hey. So first thing is I forget exactly where I saw you on LinkedIn, which is where I meet folks. Um, and I know you have the podcast. And if you want to say a word or two about that, we've talked about a little bit. Usually, what I do instead of blabbering on about some goofy thing, I ask you to define who are you and what is your work, if you wouldn't mind doing that for a moment.
Sure. I'm Benjamin. I'm an agile advisor. I help companies become more agile by evolving evolutionary instead of like just imposing concepts on people. And apart from that, I'm a former rock climber. I'm a guide, and I do podcasting because I love meeting new people, just as we do right now.
Sounds good. I like it. So, in the spirit of meeting one another, the context of we booked this call, which folks can do if I find them interesting or they find me interesting. You choose a theme. Some folks have chosen the recent theme of This is an Agile Coach, which is in response to the theme you chose, which has been around for a while. There's no such thing as an Agile Coach, which is I want to know what that brings up for you, and I want to give you as long as you want to take to answer that. What does no such agile thing as a coach mean to you? When you're done, I'll come back and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. I have chosen that theme because I think that the profession of an agile coach is so vaguely defined and nobody really knows what it is. People use their talents, their passions, and their ideas and creativity to fill that void, that meaningless of the words agile coach. But that results in nobody really knows what an agile coach is. And that's why I drifted away from saying I am an agile coach and I became an advisor on how to do things. I don't coach people, I don't train people, I advise. And some might like that, and some don't because they think you should be on the sidelines, you should ask some intelligent questions. But I think there are stones in your way that we could point out so you don't trip over them, and that's when you call an advisor. And I've been very involved in the tech industry, at least here in Germany, for the past years. And I was really bummed by all the tech layoffs that have been going on in Germany. But as you all know from the States and Silicon Valley as well, just I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday when IBM announced their big layoffs that are coming up, and it's all due to tax savings, and they're drifting away in other industries. They're investing in new technologies, and they're getting lean within their organization by laying off people and not by hiring coaches, whether it's a lean coach or an agile coach that promises them the same thing, but they opt for layoffs because that's what drives the metrics, that's what drives the needle forward. So I think instead of doing what we all as coaches, consultants, advisors did in the past years, we should learn how to drive that needle forward in order to make a meaning of all of this, and really have an impact on the world outside instead of waiting for the world outside to have an impact.
Okay. When you said waiting for the world outside to have an impact,
Yeah, an impact.
the musical person in me said went to a John Mayer song, waiting for the world to change.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, you were going to say something right there about waiting for the world. What are you waiting for?
waiting for the world to solve that issue. Like as an agile coach or advisor or consultant, whatever people call themselves, you should push that needle forward towards the goal that the company has, their strategic goal, whatever that is. And if you're not doing that, they will do that. The world will do it for you. People will pull out their investment. The spendings will go down. Their investments go wherever. They will like do a spin-off out of that company. They will close or build up new products. And that all will happen to you. Instead, what I'm supposing is that you learn how to have an impact yourself and get behind that steering wheel instead of waiting for it to happen on the outside. I think we should drive the change that people want to see, right? And the way they're measuring it, instead of just saying, well, if you're measuring story points, that's not actually what agility means. So you can't measure my performance as a coach by measuring story points. Oh, you can't measure t-shirt sizes and just sum them up, but you can't measure
Or
developer
dogs,
performance like this. Yeah,
dog
but
sizes, right?
or dog sizes. But people will measure performance, and you can either comply and find a way to showcase your impact, or they will measure it in a way that you have no edge on whatsoever. And it's going to be bad. That's why I see so many Scrum Masters laid off, at least here in Germany, and so many open job positions closed down without finding anyone because they don't want anyone.
They don't need, they don't think, they being employers.
Yes.
And again, I have a big thing about the you and the we, and being very specific about who
Yeah.
are we talking about. The you is an if you want this as a worker, as an IT
Yeah.
worker, as a knowledge worker. It is, and I'm going to just reflect back what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
It is the individual's responsibility to take ownership of their career and of the skills they bring, and to understand what is being asked of them and what are they being paid for.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then you've also brought in the idea of measurement, which I have a thing about individual measurement, individual performance, is that individual performance judged by someone else, whoever that is, that doesn't exist. That doesn't matter. What
Yeah.
actually matters, and I think this came up in the conversation you were having with Mike Lyons. One of the first things that came up with that was, oh, how am I going to measure the effectiveness of a Scrum Master? Well, they're going to, by the profit and loss and value. We're going to measure the Scrum Master only by that, and then you're going to measure everybody else not by their contribution to that. And so, but does an individual, how much does the individual play in that performance? Well, my feeling about that, my thinking about that, and I certainly invite you to challenge that, and we'll riff on it a bit, is that what matters is how well the team together as a group who has decided to be a group, or been in the mechanistic, mechanical, awful industrial managerial world, been assigned to a group of people, that group performance is what matters, because we as a team work together to serve, give value to other folks around us. We receive from others and give to the customer or whoever receives that. But individual performance, what I believe that creates is a perverse incentive of competition, individual competition, which is different from team competition. So, having said that, where does that land for you, and does that, where does that send you?
So I think the way Mike put it was a very provocative way. He's very outgoing with his words and want to engage as many people and activate as many people as possible with that. But what I think he meant, or at least what I'm very sure of that I meant, was that you should, as a Scrum Master, you should know your contribution to top and bottom line revenue. I'm not talking about there should be a direct link, if then relationship. That is very hard and almost impossible to measure. But there should be a trace of breadcrumbs between you and that top and bottom line of revenue. At least if, even if it's just a CTO saying that the Scrum Master proposed to have an emergent tech architecture that is driven by everyone on the tech stack. And that was such a good decision to do it this way that it leads us to a more modular tech stack, which is able to provide faster or more frequent customer feedback, right? And that links to a better product, and that links to better revenue. And even if it's just that vague breadcrumbs line, you should be able to trace that back to something that a Scrum Master contributed.
So that still leads into individual contribution and having a quantifiable measure of an individual's contribution. And in that,
Qualitative.
if you're talking, well, yeah, I mean, so the thing is that it's going to be, how are you going to measure the qualitative impact? That's a yes or no kind of. Did you have this idea? Where did it happen? And which is kind of the BS of OKRs. It's like, oh, we hit that, we didn't hit that. Oh, we hit that, we didn't hit that. And the OK, who decides on the OKRs, and who decides on, in this instance, who decides how the Scrum Master is judged or measured, right? I mean, and again, we're just talking about that one little part. If we're talking about Scrum, I mean, I get what you're saying, that there's the good idea has caused a benefit, and there's a breadcrumb trail, right? And that's a good thing.
So the opposing idea or the opposing behavior that I see is, and I'm just making this case up that so it's more clear to everyone listening. Think of a Scrum Master that has his or his own agenda, for example. Let's say it's, I want to end the hierarchy in the corporate world because it's bad for people and bad for humanity. And I think, although I don't have proof, I don't bring data, but I think that it's also bad for that company. So what I'm doing is I'm democratizing power
as a Scrum Master, you're saying.
As a Scrum Master, through facilitation and through the Agile Manifesto, and using that to democratize power levels within an organization. And I think that I've seen that agenda many times within my career. At least here in Germany, there's like a whole movement around democratizing power levels and having everyone equally engaged in that power level play that goes on in the corporate world. So everyone has a say and everyone's included. And I've never seen, or very rarely seen, the benefits for the overall company or the alignment from it, or it being aligned to the corporate goals. It's a solo agenda. And that's what I mean when I say that it should link or have like a trail of breadcrumbs to what the company needs as a corporation. And yes, like a Scrum Master, for example, is a servant leader to the team, but that just means a servant leader to the company.
Not anymore. They're a true leader. Remember, they're a true leader since 2020.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead, please.
No, okay.
I had to be snarky about that because I have a big issue with that too. But so, did you want to say more? Because I definitely want to come back to the democracy thing. So please feel free to just shove your hand up there and say, "Hey, stop, Ryan." It doesn't matter. So decentralization, democratization, and all of those ideas, those principles, I fully believe in them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've got, you see what I have on the back wall here, and I think that
Mm-hmm.
gives you an idea of who I talk with every week and talk about this stuff. Um, and there's some input criteria to effective decentralization and democratization that is, I wouldn't equitable in some way, but it's also respectful of mastery. So in this world, so I'll talk about the world, and then the issue of the Scrum Master Crusader with no authority.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of bringing masterful people together to federate and decide on the value and their practices and how that's going to be and what agreements do we have, that all requires a level of skill, a level of mastery, a level of maturity, and a level of willingness to have adult conversations with each other, not for fear of being whipped in the face with some kind of compliance rule. So all of those changes, that's huge change. And that kind of change requires sponsorship. And sponsorship requires formal authority in the traditional organization. And I the scrum masters who want this and want this and want this and being willing to hoist themselves up on a pike and die for this, well, that martyrdom, as much as it's honorable, is unwise. I think this is where we agree that saying this stuff is one thing, and being humble and I don't know, I wouldn't say strategic, but if you want this change to happen and you have no influence, no authority, like your development team doesn't respect you and the other folks don't respect you because maybe you're not technical, right? But you have these beliefs. Well, okay, you can scream about this all you want. You can facilitate yourself into wherever place you want to be and be the absolute best facilitator, but it doesn't amount to a hill of beans if, again, like you're saying, the results aren't there. If the business results can't be mapped to that facilitation energy, it's wonderful, and you can scream about decentralization and democratization and be right and be right. And with no authority, it just kind of gets eaten up and spit up and chewed out. So chewed up and spit out, different bit. So then what is a scrum master like that to do? What are the scrum masters and agile coaches to do in this world that the market is deciding they are no longer valuable? We were kicking them all out. I don't care. I don't want a scrum master anymore. I want an agile coach. Who cares? I want someone who helps me deliver profit.
Yeah.
What do you tell the agile coaches and scrum masters?
I think that there is a way to align what you just said. So let's say I'm a Scrum Master and I want that decentralization. Then I have to link that to the corporate goals. In times like these, when interest rates are high and corporate spending is pretty low, although the budgets are frozen basically, I would say that if we decentralize and empower people through transparency, we can lower the cost of decision making. We can lower the cost of non-directly value-adding management layers in the company. That would make us lean. That would save us a lot of money. And we would end up with faster decision making, which would give us an advantage on the market. And I want you to measure my performance on that target. Like that is what I'm not fighting for decentralization. I'm fighting for that goal. And when I do that, I'm aligned with you as a manager, as a tech leader, whatever. But I have to align my goals with yours at a certain point. We have to collaborate on the things that we want to do. And I'm
I
saying
have
you as you were the, let's say,
as
CTO
a
of that
scrum
company or the
Scrum
CEO.
master, yeah, as a scrum master, and you as the CTO, that I have to. And alignment's a whole other thing. It's kind of like culture. Alignment is a shadow of agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So that if I agree that your goals are I want to help you. I agree, and you want to help me help you. Then we have through agreement reached some kind of alignment that this
Yeah.
wants to happen. And again, I'll step off the soapbox about how unethical and horrible it is to measure someone's individual performance. But in the pursuit, and I think the point is, in the pursuit of doing something valuable, right? I live in this hierarchical world, and what is the level of influence I can have? I can help the team deliver more value by making decisions faster, by making decisions without having to ask 10 other people, and in whatever incremental way that's going to happen, to be a force for good, but not to be the crazy person in the streets with the sign saying the end
Yeah.
is nigh.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so that, but at this point in the market, the HR folks in the market, they're hiring. If they're not hiring scrum masters, what are they hiring? Right? Is it a agile project manager? Is it a team value accelerator? I mean, the folks who don't know what you and I are talking about, who not can't necessarily get with that, they need some help. I think in that, it's to help the recruiters, help the hiring managers, and say, the hiring manager, I need someone to be on this team to help them do what they do better, a performance coach or whatever it is. And so HR, get me someone who can do that, who talks like that. But don't get me any more of those scrum masters, because they're idiots. Because I don't think that, but they're all they do is play marshmallow games and penny games and airplanes and draw post-its on the board that I don't understand.
Play poker.
I'm paying, play poker, count dogs, whatever, and I'm paying them this much money. But I'm also paying the developer, the software developers, and okay, help me out, help me out. Just yeah. What so what do what do the hiring managers tell the HR managers, and how do we help these human beings who've been doing Scrum Master work continue to do work that matters? I want to help them.
So I've seen people answer that on LinkedIn by rebranding the role and like giving it another title. Let's say you're not a Scrum Master anymore. You can also do Kanban, and now you're an Agile coach. Maybe you're not an Agile coach anymore because Agile has failed in our company, but we try OKR, so you became an OKR champion or OKR master. Your job is to not facilitate daily stand-ups, retrospectives, and reviews. Your job is to facilitate the OKR meetings. Whatever they are, I have to admit, like, I'm not a super duper OKR guy. I just read some case studies and agreed on moving forward without looking too deep into it. Yeah, so what are there, like, while you've been riffing about and you said, like, what are hiring managers hiring? I see they're hiring engineering and tech mainly on cloud services and AI, but also sales, service, and support. And if I click on that, it's mainly sales. And I've been looking at Google, Meta, and Apple.
So
But
so
Apple is a
you've
weird hiring strategy, so
wait,
maybe not include them.
but you're looking at the data, and I think this is great. You talked about the layoffs at FYI or something,
Yeah.
that other website. So this is some actual data about the market, which is helpful. So, and yeah, and so I'm going to put on my mask of someone. I I spent my $2,000 on my CSM, my CSPO, much for my CSP, my ACSM, my Safe Scrum Master, and the I'm on my way to this, that, and the other. I've spent 8-9 years developing alphabet soup after my name, and now this is I've they're like, I'm left speechless. How do I sell myself
Hmm.
to, how do I How do I sell myself to the market? And this is interesting if you're looking at the hiring trends. So someone like this mystical, magical Marie, the Scrum Master, where would you say she ought to look for those market trends? Because that's
Hmm.
I would find it. I would folks would find that very very useful.
Yeah. So I think in order to sell something, whether it is your talents or your capabilities, your knowledge, or a car or a pen or whatever you're selling, you have to be empathic with who is who are you selling this to. So if you're selling your services to your organization, your company, or the company that you're applying for a job, you have to be empathic and know what does that organization need? What is the strategy behind it? And I think that organizations are really bad at really pointing out what they're actually doing. Because I mean, we could pull up like BMW auto manufacturer and look at their EV strategy, right? And they will probably say something like, "We want to be in a leadership position on EV on the EV market. We want to have the best customer experience and offer software as a service businesses within the car, and have a lot of other digital businesses going on the side. So we have like rolling iPhones and not selling cars anymore, and we're going to live off that annual recurring revenue instead of that one-time car payment." And that's all good. But when you look at the financial data behind it, you will see that they're actually cutting costs. They're moving production away from their current production sites in Germany because the competitive market is producing in lower wages countries. They are, yes, they are indeed offering digital services, but they're also limiting the amount of EV production because they're producing it in order to fill the EU regulatory on the CO2 emissions. So what I'm saying is they're really bad at calling, really pinpointing what they need and what they want. So it's
Which
it's not just looking at their website and, oh yeah, I
yeah.
got it. You want to be a leader in the EV market. Got it. Got
I'm going to read 3 books on EV vehicles so I can understand like this much of it. Uh, and like, and this also comes so someone who's going to endeavor to help a team understand what value means, right?
it.
Understand the connection between what piece of software you're developing or what product you're engineering with, in actual the world that you're from, mechanical engineering. There are teams of engineers who work together with designers and different disciplines of engineering to build something. Um, and and yeah, so if you are super skilled in those areas, let's say whatever layer of the software, whether it's cloud, whether it's developing UI UX or something, that's important to have someone to to bridge the gap and help
Mm-hmm.
communicate. That used to be the business analyst, right? It used to be business analysts who did that. But when we kicked all of them out, when someone decided that they didn't belong on the Scrum team because they weren't developers, well, surprise, surprise, then this happens, and then we say the business analysts are now product owners, but they don't have any project management experience or any product management experience. So in what I'm hearing from you, I think this is kind of a way to go. Is that, well, the Scrum Master role is a possibility for it would be show some business acumen, show some knowledge of what's this team doing, how does this serve the market, and how can I can't, as a Scrum Master, I can't have every conversation. A product owner can't have every conversation. So and I think that close tie between those two people who do those kinds of things, and if they are more integrated as a duo, I think that's a possible way to help Scrum teams go do better stuff. And there's, and I would be remiss if I didn't say there were other ways of patterns of being together. Like, I do this thing with Al Shalloway every week, this Amplio bit that's different. We're talking about patterns. There are other patterns and ways of doing that, but this the Scrum Master, and this is back to the original theme. You got to understand the business and help as many people as you can understand the business, because that's what you're getting paid for.
Yeah. And there's even another bridge besides that. There is this thing called organizational development. And
Mm-hmm.
once you understand the business or the business needs, you can think of like what what technical structure on our product, services, whatever, supports our business needs the best. And when you think of the technical structure, not as a scrum master, but you maybe with a CTO, maybe with your solution architects, maybe with whatever role that is in your company, you think of that structure, and then you remember Conway's law, and you will think of that, okay, what organization do we need in order to build such a structure? And reverse from there. And you think of, if we do not design our team structures the way that we want our architecture to look, right? Then how can we expect our like architecture to fit the product needs that the product goals that we need to get in order to achieve our business results that we're aiming for, our business strategy we're aiming for? I'm not really good at explaining that in English. I have to say
No,
that's
no,
not my
no,
mother
no,
tongue,
that's
but I hope you get what I mean.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I
That
mean, this is
organizational development is part of that agile coach role. And once you understand the business needs, you know what type of organization you need to create with others.
and absolutely, and this is part of the sticky part too, is that the folks who get thrust into the scrum master, choose the scrum master role or agile coach role, that is a conscious choice to assume a role, if you have those titles, that has only at its best, only at its best, has influence and may attain respect from at a peer level, but doesn't have a sense of authority to say, the best you can do is advocate
Mm-hmm.
for organizational change, advocate for design change, advocate for capabilities within an organization to be developed. And so that's so okay. All right. So this is, if I care again about decentralization and democratization and distributed decision making and all sorts of authority mix-ups, um, that may signal okay, that you're really talking about being at an advisory level, like you are, because I'm giving advice. I have knowledge. I want to help folks use that knowledge, and I don't want to train teams. I don't think that's my genius, but I want to give advice to folks who have authority, power to to affect meaningful change, either in an organizational development, sphere, function, or an organizational design capacity, right? And so that's so Scrum Master choose to go into OD, choose to go in the consulting route, or something like that, or like we're saying, or integrate more closely with the product management folks and understand the business, right?
Mm.
So I mean, even just in our conversation, we're talking about there are pathways, there's possibilities, there's hope. There's hope. You don't just have to ask the three questions, run a few meetings, and count story points. It's as bad as being on the factory line, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd love to get back to no such thing as an agile coach, because we drifted away and talked about Scrum. Drifted away. It's not too far away. We talked about Scrum
you,
Masters a
you
lot.
got you got to wave at me and stop me, because
Yeah,
I'll go
that
wherever.
was my way of waving.
Okay, what happens? I'll take a drink. Maybe that'll shut me up.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I have this idea in my head that how should I start this? Are you familiar with the functional theory of systems by Niklas Luhmann?
Oh, I only know Nicholas Luhmann by name, but is yeah. Okay, so please
Okay,
articulate that for me.
I hope I can give like a very, very, very crisp summary, and everybody who knows it better than I do will probably say I did a bad job at it.
I know diddly
However,
about it, so.
however, I would say that he's differentiating between a psychological system and a social system. And a psychological system is what happens within a person. It's a single person. As you strip away the context, and it's just within the person. So within a coaching or a therapy session, that is all about the psychological system. Then he also says that if you put a human being in a group, like if you put many psychological systems together, you would create a social system. And that social system is not the sum of its parts. It doesn't have anything to do with the parts. It's their interaction within that context. It's the communication, which is the oil within the machinery.
Yeah.
And that is everything around them. That could be other people communicating, that could be behavioral communication, that could be a sign on the wall, that could be the setting in which they meet, like if they're in a football stadium or are they in a church on Sundays. That will create different behavior, although you have the same psychological systems involved, so to say. So let's just assume that this is true. If you coach someone on a... Did the internet connection just break?
No,
Oh, here it
I
is.
got you.
Okay, so
You're
let's
coming
just
through for
assume...
me. So.
Okay, awesome. So let's just say this is true. Can we really coach individuals on agility? Is that even possible to have an impact on an organization if we coach them on an individual level, if we have one-on-one coaching sessions with individual contributors to that system? No?
Well, you're sub-optimizing, right? You're optimizing a part in sacrificing the relationship of the parts. And that's certainly so. I don't want to go too far, but systems theory, Russakoff, Deming also listens. They're all systems things. So please, does personal coaching have a place? Does the individual empowerment? But that I think is what you're saying. So what is the place of that individual improvement opening? So is that you're saying that doesn't have a place, as in agile coaches are not life coaches, or?
I think that would be a very... Is blunt the right word?
Well, hey,
I'm not sure.
we had a group discussion about it. That was the title of it. Agile coaches are not life coaches, and that started the dialogue. And I think that the point is, okay, so that they're not this, but what are they? And then this is so what is an agile coach? And I'm totally in agreement with you that agile means something different to everybody inside their own heads, and coach means something different to everyone inside their head. So putting those two words together doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that if you follow this theory of social and psychological systems, you would end up saying that an agile coach acting as a life coach or offering personal coaching hired by the company does help the person that he or she is coaching, but that does not necessarily, or that does not serve the company. It serves the coachee. And that's totally fine, but you have to be conscious about that investment you're doing when doing this.
And this, I think Marcelo would give you huge praise on that. So he came up with this whole thing, right? But it is, yes, you can coach the individual, but if you are you're hired to be an agile coach to help 3, 4, 5 teams deliver more revenue than cost, then you coaching some person on the team, as you have a fiduciary responsibility as an agile coach to the organization. And if you're coaching someone to have something, whatever transcendental consciousness awakening thing, or pursuing some goal about, helping alpacas, farming alpacas, that is a direct conflict of interest, right? So now, if you as an individual, I want coaching. I love professional coaching, and I am a big, personally, this is true. This is not me BSing about it. I love the coaching discipline. Well, I'm going to hire my own coach. If the company cares about my personal growth, then maybe there's a funding pool that they can say, well, you could use that money to hire a coach, right?
Hmm.
And it's none of our business. But to have an agile coach inflict professional coaching on you and have you think that the agile coach wants you to become the best you, well, then that puts the agile coach in a hard place, puts you in a hard place, and puts the business in a hard place.
Yeah. So you really have to be conscious about like what are you getting paid for, and so I'm seeing this with another company that I work with where they're all doing those discussions within DMs or like in one-on-one sessions, and the company doesn't really change at all by doing that. But what changed that company was when they made discussions public. When they turned that one-on-one, where people would have like arguments in a one-on-one session, and they would do it publicly. I mean, there are ways of doing this, good ways and bad ways of doing this, no doubt, right? But for everyone to hear those arguments and to follow that line of thought, like his or hers or whatever, um, is transforming company because they're actually like not not in a direct way, but in an indirect way, working with the social system instead of just with a psychological system in a one-on-one session.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen symbolic, like people do symbolic deeds, is that the right word? In
Yeah,
organization that
yeah.
really drives change in the organization. Even if they on paper look really stupid. But like I've seen this one. It was a very small company doing like ERP systems, and the CEO said we need to be agile because I don't want to hire people who manage you. If you need management, I did a wrong job at hiring you. It was my fault. And what I'm doing as a first step here is I'm applying on the job as a Scrum Master and I will step down from the CEO role. I still own the shares, but I'm stepping down from the CEO role and I will become a Scrum Master and get the Scrum Master salary and I will like we will vote on another CEO. Like
Um,
those things, for good or bad, but those things create culture because they happen in a system and they affect the system instead of like proposing that as an idea in a one-on-one session.
yeah. And this is about, again, I credit this particular piece of language to Niels Flagging is around work the system, not the people.
Hmm.
Because when you're working on one-on-one, you're working on that person. You're not that CEO. That's somebody who really, really, really wants the people who are with him, her, them to be members together, to be with
Yeah.
each other for each other. I don't need to be on top of you. I I don't know everything you know. You don't know everything I know. Let us know together and let us learn
Hmm.
together. And with that allows us to become an us. And yeah, oh man. In this
But
the words that come, and I want to get us, well, then drop to the last question, then we can just jam for whatever long.
yeah.
Um, is about responsibility, and that CEO with formal authority takes an act. They
Hmm.
take an action. It's risky, but less risky for them than it is for, say, your scrum master, the putting tilting at windmills. So,
Hmm.
and that that change to the system makes the shadow, that culture is the shadow of the
Yeah.
system. So please,
Do,
take me to
do
the
you want
next
to?
question.
Yeah. Do you really want to know what drives me a little bit crazy about those stories, like the one that I just told you?
Oh,
I
please.
don't. I don't know how this company is doing. They could be broke. I mean, we're saying that. We're saying that.
Yeah,
Oh, what a great move! An act of
yeah,
leadership, maybe even working the system, not the people. Like I,
yeah.
I, I'm always, I'm almost cheering for that
Yeah.
guy, but I have no clue if that has worked out. Like I have no idea about this, and I think that is also something that sometimes keeps me awake at night when I think that we have so many good concepts and elaborate
Mhm.
ideas and in books and people really like articulating those thoughts in a very compelling way. But where is the proof for that?
Well, the proof is the proof, and this comes to taking responsibility. If you don't try,
Hmm.
if you don't take the risk to say
Yeah.
this might not work, this
Yeah.
might not work, but I'm willing to take a risk and invite you into this, and we will figure it out. And if we're not getting the results that we're getting, well, how are we measuring the results? What are we doing? Because I sure as don't want to go back to telling you what to do, telling the managers to tell you what to do, telling the managers of the managers of the managers to tell you what to do, and then you having to report what you did, what you did, what you did, what you did, to totally put gunk in the decision making authority matrix. So, all right, so I don't want to go back, but
Hmm.
it's not like this must work or else we're going
Yeah.
back there. No, no, no. This might work. I'm here. I'll take this gig, and maybe we're not gonna grow like the shareholders used to want, but we're gonna
Hmm.
survive and we're gonna thrive. And we as human beings are gonna thrive in this social system with each of our psychological systems. So, ooh, thank you, man. You're holding space for my riff. That's cool. Thank you for that. Okay. So I want to do this thing and say, all right. So it's time for the last part of the show. This I'm trying to work on. If you, Benjamin, had a safe place or a safe space, whatever you want to call it, where you didn't have that risk of being sanctioned for the conversation. If you were in that safe space, what's the conversation that you would want to have in that space? And I'll open up and just talk for how long as you want, and then we'll come back.
Wait, the I think I didn't get the question to be
Okay.
honest
Oh
with
no,
you.
so it's okay. So I went really fast. So the question
Yeah.
is, I'll stay off screen.
Uh-huh.
If you had a space where you could go and have a
Hmm.
conversation about anything related to your work, anything at all, and that had some risk to it, that I would call it a dangerous conversation. That if I had this conversation out in the open, um, I would get punished for it. But if you had a place where you could go and you wouldn't get punished, what's the conversation you would want to have there about your work?
That's a very good question. And I read it before our meeting on your LinkedIn, and I was thinking about an answer. Uh, but I had none. And now I'm thinking that it's it's like the one thing that I'm driving away from um, is so I've been doing trainings for a while, and at a certain point I stopped because I didn't see the results. Um, and it's not because I was a bad trainer. I think I was a pretty, at least mediocre trainer. I got some very good NPS. People liked me. People booked me. Made some good money out of it. So how bad can it be? But taking those insights and those learnings and putting them to work for that company is so hard. It's so hard. And I really wonder if the investment in training and learning is something that we should, as companies, that we should continue. And yeah, that's like the question that I would want to discuss because I think that applying those principles, applying techniques, and solving problems, solving real problems, is really hard, but it has a benefit. So we should invest in that more than we invest in learning. Um, but there's a whole industry out there that is profiting from having the answers to questions nobody asked.
Ooh, ah, wow. I'll put that there so I can pop that. So that's a good one, and that speaks to. And thank you for that. So this at this point we can just kind of go as long as we go until either of us runs out of breath. Um, we're spending an organization. This organization is spending X millions of dollars on training. As this line item is training.
Yeah.
Well, what value? And this is the value question. What value is getting produced from that training? Is the training that's being done, is it connected to the bottom line? Well, if it can't be tied, because if you've been doing training, you know that you give the 2-day class and then you never see some of those students ever again. And who knows? Who knows whether they used your training, practiced what you taught them or not?
I mean, I call a bunch of them. I keep people, try to keep people close,
But
but
you're
I
not
see
in
them
regular
really.
classes.
Yeah, I'm not, and I really see them struggling bringing the training material uh, to value, and that could be because of me, but I see other trainers struggling with that as well. So I think it's because of training, and I think training is just a very small part of really improving company.
Yeah. And you read The Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge?
I used it for my final thesis at university, but that was like 15 years. No.
Well, so the answer is yes. You've read it. so,
Yeah.
so you know the whole idea is he talks about systems thinking.
Hmm.
He talks about the learning organization, right? So it's not about the training organization. It's
Yeah.
about an organization, a system that learns. And
And
so
learning is not going and signing up for a course and learning a theory. Learning is like, look at the Agile Manifesto. We're doing this and helping others to do it. So we're learning how to do this by doing this and helping others to do it. We're not learning this by attending a course, reading a book. That might be part of the journey, but it's not the entire journey. The doing
yeah,
part is the most important part.
and again, this is totally right on. Totally in another conversation I'm having with another person who that 13 of the 17 signatories on the manifesto did not want training and certification. That they did not want it. We know the two who did, right? Because they're kind of it's the fault of all no, but whatever. But that the majority of folks who were in the software domain, right? They were all in their different methods and wanting to do lightweight methodologies of software development. They didn't see the value in certification. Does that tell us something about where we are and where we started in the terms of the agile world, the community
And there
that
are
is
like
not a community?
and there are two things in that question that I find really interesting. One is that we fall so easily for things that sound great, and oh boy, does learning sound great! It just sounds great. When you're learning new stuff, what's wrong with that, right? And you're even getting certified. It We're falling for stuff that sounds great, and I'm not. I won't map this only to certification, but it's also like for frameworks or concepts or ideas in
Yeah.
books out there that sound great but lack proof. Um, just for anyone listening and wondering what could an example be, just just take a look at the case studies of the Scaled Agile Framework on the website of the Scaled Agile Framework and try to find any case study that really does the implementation roadmap of SAFe, like doing what they're actually telling you to do, right? And we're falling for stuff that sounds great. That is just the one bias, and the other part is it has such good EBITDA margins. That training business has so good margins. It has high risk because you're getting paid for a 2-day, 3-day gig, and then you have to
Yeah.
find another gig. And those transaction costs and the risk involved with that is rewarded with a really good margin. So it attracts people, and if it attracts more people, those are going to sell it, those are going to market it. So you have like a whole space of people cheering for that. Cheering for that, not because it helped them to make their lives better, but not in a way that the concept in that book they're referring to or that training class they're referring to, yeah, it has good margins and sets weird incentives because of that.
It's the exact example of that. That's a node in the system that is self optimizing. That's
Yeah.
one node. The trainer is optimizing for to getting paid to train, and these other folks are investing in something that's going to diminish in value immediately as soon as they leave the trainer's presence.
Yeah.
So that's a bad deal for the student, and it's a great deal for the trainer.
and
So
and uh, we spent some time here on this oh my god, certifications are this and that, but or trainings and training industry. But I have to give it to them. Like the content, there's a lot of good content out there. Things that are interesting that I want to learn. So I sign up for courses because I want to learn. And yes, I fall for that bias that I mentioned as well. But there's like really helpful content out there. And sometimes I'm just waiting patiently, waiting for that problem that I could finally use some of that content that I've just learned, right? So I'm not like blaming the whole industry and saying training is bad, certification is bad. They're teaching good stuff, but there are flaws in that system of training and certification and expecting it to really drive business results.
well, and this the words that come to mind thinking about that is that it's a solution looking for a problem to solve. It's
Yeah,
not it's not just in time training necessarily. If it were just in time training, well, that would be pretty valuable, wouldn't it?
yeah.
And so in this so the other piece of this is, oh, okay, well, no, yeah, just in time training, it means you're experiential learning, that learning that's reinforced, that's you get, and this is the whole idea of practice. You have engineering skill, right? So you went to engineering school, and okay, so as a result of that schooling, you were trained and you used that training and increased your level of skill so that you could be a skilled engineer. Am I correct in that? Okay.
Hmm.
So I did the same thing as a musician. I went to music school so I could gain skills to be a better musician and do that. But that took practice. It took study. And I listened to the stuff and I studied. I used the theory because I was doing the practice that supported the
Hmm.
theory that allowed me to play on the gig, which in the engineering mode is I practice my engineering skills, my math. Maybe it's different. Maybe there's a distinction there I'd like you to say. But for a musician, you got to practice, you got to care about it, you got to use it on the gig, and then you keep using it and keep learning. So how would you add or subtract from that?
Yeah. So I wanted to say that you practiced with what you've learned, but you haven't had let's say, the problem of an audience. I think that's the wrong word. That's the wrong way to say.
No,
But
no, no, no. But that's the
like,
point of practice. That's the point of
yeah,
practice. So you can
yeah,
perform for an audience.
exactly, right? So you practice in order to be good in case the problem shows up. So you design your life around like that problem showing up. And by doing that, it will show up. But that could also not happen, right? Like you go to a class to learn about how to scale with 10 different scrum teams and all have them all work on the same product. But then the problem is different. Like it's not a product, it's a service. It's not 10 teams, it's 100 teams. They're not co-located, they are in different time zones. They're using different software architectures or different techniques. Their hardware and software and somehow that doesn't match what you've seen in practice, right? And that's
So,
when
and it
that's when it really gets interesting.
with that, and if you were, could you ever find a case study that showed you that in that way that you could learn from that in a way that would help a person there? That's what, again, this is another thing that I've come to believe, that the case studies, that they're just like theory.
Hmm.
They don't mean anything in other than just, this is an example of someone doing something in that place in that way. You talked about the safe case studies. Find me. You just said find me just one that did it by the book and got the results that were promised. You know,
I
and
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want
no,
to.
no, it's okay. I was going to say the same thing. Now, Dr. Sutherland, bless him, has some kind of proof around how Scrum at Scale does this. I who knows? I mean, but that in general, all general, that the case studies, why exactly do you want a case study? To prove to me, to blame somebody? Oh, hey, I had this case study. Well, if now we can buy this, but it's like this thin of a reason when it's really about, I want this change to happen, and I think this is a good way to do it because I know it's out there. I mean, there are any number of ways to talk about it, but please.
Yeah. So I just learned something right there, because I wanted to interrupt you and I wanted to say, but there is a good thing to case studies, which is they're inspiring people to work on their context and inspiring them by showing other people who figured something out within their own context. And that gives you the confidence that you could do it as well. Not the same way, because you
Mm-hmm.
have a different context, but they figured it out in their context, and now you can do it in your context as well. People are capable of doing that. And then I've learned that that is not how a case study works. It's not a case study that I'm talking about. It's more of a case story that I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about, because
Yeah.
you tell them a story that gives them hope of finding
And,
their own path, right? But not by showcasing step one, step two, step three.
and this is we say about, do you really need another case other than Toyota for the new product development game, or
Oh
for
yeah,
how
the
Toyota is?
Lockheed Martin SR-71. That would be a really great case
Or,
study to have.
but just the fact, but to say, oh, this is, well, I don't know that particular example. I don't know if it's something blowing up and going down in flames, um, but say there's Toyota, there's Burzorg, there's DM
Right.
Greenmark, there's Handelsbanken. It just in the realm that I care about, which is the organizational democracy and decentralization. There are cases out there. If you want a
Yeah.
case, look at them. But what's your problem?
Yep.
And what do you want for you, and how might these patterns of that work out for? So yes, so the Lockheed Martin, was that them building a plane that exploded in midair or something
No.
like that?
Oh yeah, but every plane explodes at a certain point. Like they're not. No.
They're all ticking time
That
bombs.
Yeah. But that plane like has a million interesting stories of people overcoming bureaucracy, dependencies, and like creating contexts in which things work that nobody has ever thought of, that how things could work. But like I could go on about this plane. Like I'm having it here. Oh no, you won't see it because of the exposure. But if you look it up, the SR-71, it's called Blackbird, and I can highly
Ah.
recommend that. There's an acquired episode out there about Lockheed Martin. Just try to get to the SR-71 part of it. That's really good. Or dig out one of my talks that I gave at a couple of conferences. Maybe they recorded me. I have no clue. I don't have a link.
I was to see if
But
like,
yeah,
so
no,
if I've got to go take care of my body for a moment or two, and before my next thing at 3:30. This
yeah,
has been fantastic. You've energized me, and I've had a nice time here meeting you. This is wonderful. Um, The one thing I forget to ask people that I
Mm.
think folks would say, this is not Nicholas, how do people find you if they want to learn more about you and get more into how you think and do stuff? How would you like to share that with the folks out there?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find me by my name, Benjamin Igna, which is down here. And I'm open to discussions, I'm open to connect. And also, if you want to hear me ramble on more, you could tune into the podcast that is called Stellar Work. It's a small podcast project that I started like 2 months ago or 3 months, 2 months ago. And I'm having interesting guests that I want to talk to. And having a podcast gives me the opportunity to approach people and just right away ask them if they're up for a chat. So if you want to join in there, you're more than welcome.
Wonderful. Benjamin, thank you so much.
Oh yeah,
And
and there's the
take a
plane,
breath. Oh, there's I got it. Let me put you
but
there
it's too
full
small
screen.
probably.
Okay, all right. Well, you'll show me in the background. So, ha ha ha! I get to talk to Benjamin after this. So, those of you who are out there, I'll turn full screen. Woof! Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful talk. Thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. This has been Riffing with Ryan. I am Ryan Erickson. See you later. Goodbye. Bon chance.